So please welcome back Dallisa Hocking to the show. Welcome, Dallisa.
Oh my gosh, we had such a good time the first time we did this that of course I had to come back. So thanks for the invitation.
Oh, it was in October. So I was looking back before I was sitting here getting ready for you, and I'm like, I wonder when it was because my life has changed and shifted so much. And I look at your progression since then and all the things that's been going on in the world. And it's so funny. So October 21st is when I put this your episode out. It was 288. So we're in the 300 low 300s right now. So I've had a few episodes since then. But I had to ask you back because I have my Northwest friends that all follow you that connected me that said you have to have you on. So now I'm like follower and I just like you're my soul sister. And they kept saying she's not doing the predictions and some all these stuff about predictions. Well, that's her like thing, right? That's your, you've been COVID, the helicopter crash. You have like this very high percentage of being correct on these predictions. So that's your thing. So my one friend, will not say her name, told her husband to not fly, went to get all the batteries, and I'm just like, what? She goes, yeah, I'm like fixated on these predictions. So then she listens to you, and it's like something about I'm realizing these predictions are creating fear and all these things, and people are like, what, like she is like saving food and telling cancel your flights. But also, when you realize, like, really now that I've kind of gone down your rabbit hole again since then, recently, is like when you realize what goes on in the world, and it is so, we're just shifting so much. This earth is just like the vibration and our frequency, all the things. There's so many things that I think people are becoming like, it's like what I just got a vision of is like when we were little and we played that ball game where you threw the ball against the people and you try to hit them. What was
Yeah.
that called at
The
recess? We would
dodgeball?
dodgeball, where you just like have all these things coming at you and you're like, oh my gosh, she said this. You better go, you better go do this. Tell me what, because it has shifted and it did make you wake up. What was that? Where was that point in that?
Yeah. I'm so glad you asked about this because I actually got some heat over it. I had a few people that were really ticked off that I made this shift. I wasn't planning on making the shift. I knew that one-on-one readings, like psychic mediumship readings, I knew those were feeling really heavy for a long time just because of how much energy it takes. But I enjoyed actually making world predictions. I thought they were pretty interesting. But I was sitting at my house one weekend, and as Spirit often does, downloads information that I get. And out of the blue, I have chills even as I bring this up. I heard from them, my angels and my guides, you've been making predictions that have been causing fear. We know that wasn't your intention, but we need you to pivot now. And we need you to go into what they referred to as the activation stage. And they said it's no longer about consumption of predictions. That's not helping anyone. That they were showing this energy of people like sitting there, whether they're on their phone or watching it on their TV and like consuming the predictions and just kind of going wild about it and not in a good way. And the activation phase is much more about us going within ourselves to do the healing and reclaim our deep intuition that we already were born with and we all have. And so I wasn't really prepared for all of that. And so in the last couple of months, I've really kind of redesigned like what I'm even offering now. I mean, of course, I still get all of my downloads and I can't help but, see when someone's lying or when something's going to happen with the world. Like I still get it, but I don't go out anymore and just rattle off the predictions so that the clickbait is there or that the apocalypse thumbnail on YouTube can be next to my face. So now it feels like the word I'm hearing psychically in my ear is they're saying that I've matured. Um, and now, like, just to kind of give a couple of examples, because I think this might help. So, one of the things that's getting ready to launch is called From the Blue Chair. And I've said very little about it, but my grandmother, whose photo is on display behind me right now, who I get all my gifts from, my dad's side of the family, she used to be a postmaster in her very small town in Idaho. And she also was a psychic and saw full body apparitions. And her energy stepped in, I'd probably say 3 weeks ago. And I could see her back when I was a kid, her sitting in her living room in her blue chair writing letters. So she would write letters because that's what she loved to do. She had this beautiful handwriting, and she managed and operated the post office. So this download comes in about 3 weeks ago, and it was around this project I'm getting ready to launch that is me actually sending mail to people. That's like something you actually want to get in your mailbox. It's like a
Oh,
reminder of the human experience and that we're all here together. So it's called From the Blue Chair because I have a blue chair. She wrote from her blue chair. So that's more of like the feel of what I am now moving deeper and deeper into is more the human connection and remembering our worth and that our self worth impacts everything about our lives and still helping people sort through what it means to awaken and how do we activate our intuition more. So that's still very much a part of it. And I'm going more and more into teaching because I've felt this nudge to work with different teachers. So I created the gathering room and so you can see, like, even the names of the things that I'm doing now have much more of like a home feel
mm-hmm.
because I want people to feel like we can all gather together in my living room of sorts, online and talk about everything that is going on because it is so wild. So I'm glad you asked about it because it's kind of changed my whole world and my life and but I'm not surprised. If anybody out there knows astrology, I just went through my Uranus opposition and that usually happens when you're in like early to mid 40s. And that is the transit that happens when you're basically questioning who you are in the world and your
Mm,
identity. So I knew it was coming. I had
interesting.
like, I was like, oh, okay, we'll see what happens. Like, I do so much work on myself already. I'm like, I can't be that surprised, right? By like whatever happens. And then this shows up. I'm like, of course. So
Uh,
that's kind of the update on everything that's been happening.
what came to me was, people depending on you or some guru or spiritual, figure for answers. And there's some shift now. I feel like you could say the veil's thinning or, our frequencies, right, raising. It's time for us to own our own power and learn that instead of depend on someone for that. Do you agree?
Completely. One of the
Yeah,
things that came through with the download was that unknowingly, I had created a relationship with everybody that was consuming the content. And it was actually disempowering for them because they were looking to me to get the answer
right.
instead of being empowered within themselves. So, yes, this whole shift over the last few months is more about reminding people of their own power and that they don't have to give themselves away to anyone and they can give themselves permission anytime to do anything. They don't have to seek it outside of themselves. So yeah, it's kind of a return to self is
Yeah.
yeah,
That's really the themes for me lately because people always reach out to me and say, who would you, I want to get a reading. Who would you suggest? Or I want to learn from somebody. Who would you? And I said, why don't we forget that we need to find someone? Why don't you learn within? Let's go in you, you are your biggest teacher. So that has been something coming up so much. So when you said that, it was like, oh my gosh, that is like totally where I see this shift going. And also, okay, so Now let's go here. Okay, so I was just listening to you talking about people, anxiety, depression. We have this like, we've had this world that we've lived in, and all of a sudden, it's like, oh my gosh, that's been happening. Oh my gosh, like we've been duped. Oh, we've been eating this food, or we've been going to this school, we've been doing using these systems, and it's all this big fraud or big, whatever. And and I'm thinking, yes, I get it because you can get so consumed by listening to the things that we have been, living in, thinking, okay, I'll go to college, go to this school, learn the books. I mean, everyone that listens to this has done the rabbit holes that I've done. But you go down you learn like, wow, I drank the Kool-Aid, even as a mom, like up until, since probably 7 years ago. 2020 was a real wake up. Obviously, we all did, but I mean, hope we mostly did. But, realizing, starting to question things, but then seeing the world like going into this place of like, what do I do now? Like, I've been like living this life and thinking this is how we're supposed to do it. I've been going to these restaurants and eating this food, and it's all poisoning me. I've been believing this health system. And now it's like, what do I do with all that? Like, where do we live? But because that was I loved, it was like a 10-minute video that I listened to, but it was very um, timely for where we are right now, I think.
Yeah, I went and sat on the living room
Yeah.
floor and I just sat on the floor with my microphone. I was like, all right, let's just do this. Let's talk about it. And I think part of it was because of my own journey with it, and just kind of questioning everything I've been going through these last few months. But, I'm 45. I've never been married. I don't have any children. It's not what I thought would happen. If you would have asked me in my early 20s, I would have said, oh, yeah, I'm going to meet somebody and start a family. And it just literally never happened. Like there wasn't anyone that like came across my pathway that was like a viable contender, really. So I think I've just been doing a lot of thinking, and that's why I made that video because I know I'm not by myself. And you just gave so many incredible examples of that we have been told like what it is that we should do or what's acceptable or what people would judge you less on. And those are things that we've mentioned already. So that video is like this almost confessional that I wanted people to feel like you're not alone if you feel like you have been lied to. And the lies are so rampant and many, through all different areas of life. So, what I feel like could be the lie that I got duped with, the lie would be very different for someone else. So, I think all of it to say, and yes, the veil is thinning, is that we are being asked to be our own advocate. We're being asked to be self reliant. We're being asked to be strong within ourselves in so many different ways. And with that, we may feel like we don't want to be a part of many of the systems that we've been a part of, to date. And many of them will change over the coming years, especially through the early 2030s. But I think it's almost like energetically, many of us are being tapped on the shoulder and it's like, hey, wake up, wake up, wake up. It's almost like we've been in a dream
Uh-huh.
and or a nightmare. And we're coming out of it and waking up out of it and realizing, oh my gosh, this is not what I thought I was in. It's almost like there's an astrologer, David Palmer, and I believe it was him that coined the term shattered reality. And that is what I'm hearing in my ear right now. Excuse me. It's shattered reality. We're waking up to what we thought was true, and we're being faced with what is.
Right.
And now that we have what is, then what are we going to do about it? But that is where we're being tapped as well to go within and ask ourselves each individually, now that I see the truth and I can't ignore it anymore, what am I going to do next about it?
Right.
And that answer is going to vary for each of us. But I still know that there are a lot of people on earth that have not woken up yet, but they are starting to see the cracks in the foundation. And so maybe they're still in the nightmare and they haven't been woken up yet. But I think through many, many events that we will see play out in the collective and in mainstream media, there will be many opportunities for people to wake up. And those of us that have already gone through an awakening experience, we're really going to be kind of holding the flashlight for people
Hmm.
that are coming out of the nightmare and they're like, wait a second, I don't even recognize anything about where I'm at anymore. And maybe they never even thought about intuition or psychic abilities or spirituality or anything like that. And they're going to likely have, varying levels of an identity crisis.
Yeah, totally. In a personal note, my youngest that we were just talking about before we hit record, she is in 11th grade. She's 17, and she's always said, "Mom, school is such a waste of time. I just don't want to. I wish I could just do homeschool." And I said, "Oh, honey, I know, So we'd probably been having that conversation since she was like in 6th grade. So in December, the end of December, before after the holidays, we were sitting on the dining room table doing our vision board, and she goes, "Mom, I just can't go back to school." And I said, "Oh, honey, Dad's not going to agree with that. So, that's a good. I know you don't want to." She's like, "I'm going to make a PowerPoint tonight and do a PowerPoint presentation for him to tell him what a waste of time and that I'm not learning anything and that the teachers don't teach. It's all chat GPT." And then the kids are sitting there cheating and they're just using it's just, "Mom, it's a waste of time." I said, "Well, go ahead. Let's leave the vision board, go do your PowerPoint." So she does the PowerPoint. I told her, Dad's going to ask you these certain things, socializing, what all the different questions about, are you going to spend time when you don't have to be at school? What are the time that you have home? So because of pageants, she's very good at speaking and doing her like spokesmodel presentation. She did an amazing job. And Richard and I talked, and he said, "I'm not, that's not going to work. We're halfway through her junior year. We've paid tuition." And I said, "Why don't we do this? I want to acknowledge that we listened to her. And let's say on Monday, teachers are back in school. We'll ask them if we get our money back. Then I'll tell Presley, then it's a go. Green light, Dad's all in. We're all in. And if we don't, which we won't probably because it's already halfway through, then she has to stick it out throughout her junior year and we'll reassess the thought her senior year." Sure enough, Monday comes, "Mom, make the call." I do. They said, "Oh, as a matter of fact, by 5 o'clock tonight, if you sign the waiver, you can get all your money back." And she goes, "Mom, I did it." And I go, "Oh my gosh, we have to call your dad right now." So long story short, because I was thinking in my head when you were talking in my ear the last few days, like Presley really know, like these kids know this is such a waste of time, and they aren't learning the truth of what the history is, or why am I learning these whatever chemistry if I'm not interested in it, stretching class, Catholic faith. Like, "Mom, I don't," it's like I sit there for 8 hours when I could be doing for an hour and a half of school. So here we are in our new life that she created from her PowerPoint presentation. And like she was so intentional and it was so cute to watch. And it made me realize, like, if you looked at a moment in someone's life where there's a Y in the road and, we had to be the parent that drank the Kool-Aid to say, "This is what you do," the white picket fence, or let's listen to her and see what her choice is. She's 17, it's like, let's see, your choices. You either fail, you learn something, you never fail. It's always a growing thing. But I woke up in the morning on Tuesday to see her smiling face and this relief of like, "Mom, I'm free. I'm free." And that's been a whole shift. So looking at life now as a mom, watching these kids, and Paige is a sophomore in college and she's shifted too. And I won't get into that, but my whole life and since I've seen you last, my girls, my life, it's like, okay, we're it's like this, the onion layer has been peeling and peeling and peeling. Isn't that cool?
I actually started to get misty-eyed when you were telling me about her making the PowerPoint presentation because I could feel like the seriousness in it for her and like how important it was for her.
Hmm.
And I think she serves as an example to all of us of, what's the thing that we have been putting up with for too long
Right.
that we know that we don't want to do or that we know isn't really serving us or serving us in the way that actually is how we want it to be. So I love that you shared that example because there's something probably for every single one of us in our life that we keep doing because we feel like we have to or out of obligation. And I think it's time that we just burn it down.
Right. But I said, Presley, all these girls were reaching out to her. Can you send me the website to the school, the charter school? And I said, you're starting a trend. And it's like watching this one little thing, this little soul, just making this decision and being so strong about it and not caring what anyone thought. She didn't care. She went and turned in her iPad the next day, like she doesn't care. Hey, how you doing? Like, bye. It wasn't even that. Like she didn't care. But I said, when she showed me that and showed me just like what we were saying before, like when you start realizing that we have been told to do these certain things, and then you step back and you look at it from a different lens now because of what we've learned and think, gosh, we first of all, we're so much more powerful than depending on these spiritual teachers or you and your predictions. We have the power. Like let's go there. Like even where you're going now with your teaching, like teaching people, like you have the power. It's like so cool to see that people are. I mean, I know there's, I don't know, what would you say, 99%, like how many people are really feeling that. But when you go down the education system and all these different governments and you start to look at things and you're like, wow, like wait, look at, I get excited because it's crumbling.
It is. And I think people are at a varying level of realizing that. So, I mean, we're having this conversation. The people listening to this conversation know that what's happening and they see it and they feel it. And maybe they really relate to what we've been talking about. But I think, take the other 99 people. I think you could kind of look at it like a gradient scale, like that there's some that are not awakened at all. There are some that are kind of getting curious about what the heck's going on, So you've got this whole range of
Mhm.
people, but I do believe that those of us that have gone through it and have seen it and know what's going on, we have been positioned so that we can help the people. Not that we want to tell them exactly what to do, because that's kind of back in that predictive energy of like, I'll just tell you, and then you don't really ever fix anything or change anything. Um, but I do think we can serve as an example because as you share your story and I share my story, those are going to spread and they're going to trickle into different pockets and communities and groups. And it's like this ripple that I don't think we ever intended to make. I mean, I didn't know that all this was going to happen years and years ago, but here we are, 2026, and we are creating this ripple that's going out into the world. So I think that there will inevitably be people that will want to awaken and we can help serve as an example in good ways, hopefully. And there will be some people that won't want to. And I don't think they're going to be forced to. But I think the reality is, those of us that are awake, I don't think we'll be interacting as much with the people that are not awake. I think it's going to
Right.
become too much of a gap in the energy, the frequency, where you just won't want to spend time with them, talk to them, work with them. Like, so it does really feel like there is a split that is
For
happening.
sure.
And I think it's going to continue to happen.
Yeah. You know, that Dolores Cannon that reminded me, she always used to say like the split of the earths, you know, but it's not really the earth splitting. People would say, you mean there's the earth's gonna go on one side, you know, but it is a split and it is an understanding of you seeing friends like even the girls, you know, at their age, like I don't talk to them anymore, mom. They don't come into my space. They don't ask me. I said it's a different. It's you're shifting. It's like this natural process of when you raise your vibration, you become aware of things, and they're not bad or you know, it's not like a judgment thing, but it's just like it's like the it just sheds. They shed from you, and it's not going to serve you anymore. But as a mom, I'm watching that. Um, but you know, also about this Earth thing, like the cool thing that I learned from you is like the Earth school is like the hardest school that we choose to be. And as with your gifts, as you can see past lives, future, and really like I don't know, see everything. When you see this Earth that we chose to be the spark of Dallisa. Like you just have this spark of God in you. You said, okay, I'm going to come into this body during this time, become this medium, psychic, leader, spiritual teacher, and guide people to to their gifts, to seeing who they truly are. Where explain to everybody how you see the world, like how when you see the future events and you can make those predictions and when you can see past lives because you're so good at that and you teach people through their past life experiences.
Yeah, this is like the Truman Show, you know? This is the simulation. And more actually feel like it is a simulation. It doesn't mean that God doesn't exist or Jesus or Mary or any religious figures. Doesn't mean that at all. But I do feel like we are in some kind of movie. So when I look at everything, I actually try to see it as actors in a
Hmm.
play or in a movie. And so when I see something really horrible in the news, let's say, I try to see it as a scene I am watching in a film. And I also try to remind myself that, and as unpopular as this is sometimes with audiences, that we chose certain things in our life before we were born. This includes our parents, our siblings, soulmate relationships, which don't have to be romantic. They're usually the hardest relationships. We chose a lot of things before we came in here, and it was because we knew we were coming here to get a PhD in Earth School, and the way that we do that is not when everything is perfect. It's when everything is like creating roadblocks and challenges. So we know that from the other side where our home is, we know that we're going to Earth School and it's temporary and like let's load up on all the extra credit because maybe from a soul's perspective, we don't want to come back again, but we want to do one more. So I think for a lot of us, we chose some really difficult things. And so when I see the news headline that is catastrophic, yes, I see it as a film from a movie, but I also recognize in that moment that anyone that is a part of that story or that scene opted into that before they were born. And I get pushback a lot on this because people will say, well, I've been through this, this, and this. You have no idea. My life has been horrible. I would say to them, you're right. I have never been in your shoes. But based on what I have learned over the years and seen through my channelings, it's usually the most advanced soul that comes here that has the most horrific things that happen to them because they are advanced. They've been through many, many incarnations where they've had a lot of other experiences. So, and as an example, because I get this question a lot, well, how do I make that work or justify that if it's a child that's died? And I can't imagine what that would be like. But every time I look at a child that's passed away and I communicate with them on the other side, they are a very, very advanced soul. And they knew, and as much as people may hate to hear this, people around them knew before they were all born that that was going to take place.
Mm.
And one may ask, why the heck would anyone choose that? And I go back to it. It is a PhD here on a very hard school. So that child passing away, that creates a ripple through their family, through their community. And in many cases, we could point to where a child had passed away and the parents started some kind of foundation to help other kids, or a family member did something else in memory of that child that then ripples through a whole other pocket of a community, right? So it is meant for our evolution, but that often comes when it's the most difficult, hard night of, dark night of the
Right.
soul that we've been through.
Right. So let's go to, I always say I don't watch the news, but I say we're just watching a movie. We're watching a movie. And when you talked about the Truman Show, Presley and I just finished Stranger Things. And I'm like, it's like they're showing us what is really happening. And people have watched it over we just had finished it like in a month. But I was like, oh my gosh, like now the whole stuff with Epstein comes through and you start to see that. And then with Charlie Kirk, the Snake Eyes, like all these movies that in 1998 were all the same, like, and then the Barron Trump book, like in 1880, whatever, in the 1800s was written, and it's all Trump. Like, explain that, Delisa.
I think it's a simulation. I mean, I
Well,
feel
yeah,
like,
right,
yeah, I feel like they give us these different clues and signals and synchronicities. And I almost feel sometimes like whatever energy creator is on the other side of the simulation, that it's almost like, let's just put this in there for fun. Like, let's just like see how they react to this. Sometimes I feel like it's that video game, The Sims. If you remember that video game, it's like a simulation video game where it's like you get to, as the player, create the life that the Sims live in and what they wear
oh
and who they
no,
date. And like, oh my gosh, oh, like, are we the Sims? Like, that's
right.
what it feels like. So, um, I think part of the magic of the simulation is that we do get clues along the way, because when we cross back over to the other side, like everyone that's over there that we knew in this lifetime, like they're excited to welcome us, and we get to do a lot of really cool things on the other side because there's not roadblocks and challenges over there. So we really get to kind of live out our purpose more, if one would say. So yeah, I forgot where I was going with that, but did I answer your question?
Well, when I see things that are we like being done? Like it's like we're being duped. Like, one of those shows that, like let's see how we can trick the person. Like I feel like, when I was watching Stranger Things, and then I started to think of, wow, when I saw the Snake Eyes with all the everything that's going on with Charlie Kirk, and I think we talked about him last time because it was close, it was like in October, so it just had happened. But the things that have come out with that in the last 4 months that that of course I'm down that rabbit hole, but when you start to put the pieces together to look at how, like, I know there's no time. Like, are we living, so I start to, like, my head just starts to blow off like that, my emoji, because it's like the assimilation, it has to be like the Truman Show. Like I don't know. That's why I go through that place where I can't watch the news because I look at him, I go, I know you're just saying whatever you're supposed to say. It's all of a big play that it's like they're just playing their part.
Yes. Yeah, I think it's part of like the game that we're in. And we could even think about life as a game. Now, I know that's easier on some days than other days to think about it that way, but if we were playing a video game and everything that we could see out of our eyes was the video game that we were playing, like, would we play it differently? I bet a lot of people would. if they knew that, yeah, you don't ever die. You just go back home and then, you kind of figure out what you're going to do
Right.
next. I think people would really do life differently. I think they would go bolder. I think they would go
Right.
and make choices that they have been afraid to make. And I think disclosure, it's been happening, around galactic beings and crafts and things, but I do think we are going to get even more disclosure around that because what we were just talking about with the simulation, I do think there are galactic beings that are not human that are playing some of these parts that we see in the movie. I do think some of the galactic beings are humans in the future that have come back. So I know that really will
Okay.
make people's heads kind of like pop, but I do think we're going to find out more about allies that are not of Earth. And just like humans, there's good ones, there's not so friendly ones. But I think it's going to send also a lot of people into a tailspin that have really anchored themselves into, let's say, their specific religion with their Bible, and that is what they believe, and nothing else is true, or other things are demonic. Because there's a lot of energy right now that I've been witnessing around very religious people that are talking about how UFOs and galactic beings are demonic. And I think there's going to end up being a storyline in the movie about religion, or like God versus Satan, or the perception of Satan,
Hmm.
and what that means to all of us and where we're really from. So it's going to get really, really interesting.
Yeah. Well, I I would definitely go down that galactic, but I feel like you bring in when you channel sometimes galactic beings, and I know you can feel the different energy, and it's when explain that. So when we raise our frequency through meditation, through all of those practices that help raise your frequency, the closer you get to, like even with mediumship, I know that's a highest of the frequency is to get to that place. And I know we all have that ability in our soul, but for you to explain, disclosure, they keep talking, Trump's bringing the disclosure out, and, Bashar, the 2026, 2027 is when they keep it's like, but is disclosure like that word? I feel like we're already in disclosure.
Mhm.
Like they keep saying it's coming, disclose, but it's like I live in disclosure.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think there's going to be something to it though that makes it more concrete. Um, I think it could be more sightings of crafts that are just becoming more and more visible.
But we
I
don't have to
do
have our energy for me to see that for
it
someone
it's
in,
easier. It's easier for you to see it if you've got your frequency higher, for
right,
sure. But I've also seen people and heard stories of people that have had UFO galactic experiences, and I wouldn't necessarily say that they were intentional about raising their frequency. I think they were just kind of living everyday normal life, right? So,
right,
but if your frequency is higher, you absolutely can connect. You can channel galactic beings that are above us in the sky right now. Yes, and that's available to all of us. But I do think we will have something more concrete that will be very, very hard to deny that these beings are real, which then feels like what I feel psychically coming in with that is it could almost feel like a replica in the energy of like the Salem witch trials. Like, oh, you believe in UFOs, or you had a UFO experience, like you're of the devil. Like it feels like there's something in there that's going to become part of the storyline. And I do think there will be a figure of a country that will come out and make a formal announcement about it. I have heard just non psychically that Trump has written a speech to do that. I think other leaders have written speeches too. And I get chills coming up my body as confirmation for this. I feel like one of them will obviously go first, unless they decide to come together and do it simultaneously at the same day and same time. But it feels like there will be a speech that future generations will remember about formally disclosing them.
And why now? Why does that have to be coming from a president or a leader from a speech?
I think it's because so many people still disbelieve them
Mm.
that it's part of the reckoning is what I'm hearing in my ear about the dismantling and everything being kind of falling to the ground, redoing, reseeing, renegotiating, like everything is crumbling in a way. So disclosure of galactic beings feels like it's kind of just another one of the systems that some people talk about and believe in, and others think very differently about it. So it just feels like it's another layer. So whether we talk about healthcare, we talk about education, like we talk about real estate or relationships and marriage, like everything is shifting. And we're seeing it with clearer eyes than ever before. Like we talked about waking up out of that nightmare. And so galactic beings and who are our allies or not our allies in the universe just feels like it's just another layer of what we can see clearly now that we really couldn't see before.
And this time, 2026 is we've been building up to this earth frequency or the the all the astrology that's going on, that's the fire horse and all the planets that have never been 30,000 years, um but it's because that's where we're living in, right? Like it's it's come to this point, like the tipping point where the we have the galactic, it's a natural evolution, right?
Absolutely. I think a lot of this, you could tie to astrology and all of these very, very rare things that are happening with the planets up in the sky. And I'm a firm believer in it being accurate in terms of pointing out these major, major shifts. I know one of them, the Saturn Neptune conjunction in Aries at the 0 degree, which is literally the first degree of the entire zodiac, that just happened. That hasn't happened for thousands of years. And I think of that just spiritually as like, wow, those two major planets coming together in the sky at 0 degrees of the very first zodiac sign, like that has to be some kind of major beginning that we can't even fathom right now, but we are talking about it. We know it's here. We know that there's going to be layers peeled away. But all the people out there that have no idea about astrology or anything like that, unless they're tuning into some content somewhere spiritually based or astrologically, they have no idea. They might just think like, oh, eventually we'll get back to normal. We are not going back to where we
No.
were. This is a totally different world. I think in some ways we like were in the nightmare and we woke up in a new reality. I mean,
Right, I
we
agree.
can't go back into the
No,
nightmare to then go back into the life we had before. Like,
no.
welcome.
Yeah, once you cannot not know. But I was so AI and this chat GPT and all the words that all the other platforms that have AI, how that's come into our life and how it's changed and really shifted the education system in my life with my girls, and watching it from that perspective. And then you go into it with the healthcare and what you see in the future with how that is going to help with, like, and I look at Atlantis, like I feel like it's all coming back from that time, right? Like we had that, but it's now reemerging.
Exactly. I channeled that one night during one of my shows in the Seattle area about how AI was there all along, but we actually chose to use it improperly or unethically, and it destroyed our civilization. So it's always been there. So yeah, it's coming
Right.
back in. But yeah, AI, based on everything I've seen, is not going anywhere, and it's going to get bigger and it's going to get frankly like more like pervasive in our lives, our day-to-day lives, where it's just going to be a part of everything. And there's upside and there's downside to that with anything in life. So the healthcare piece, I have been shown that almost like we put into like a drop of blood, let's say, into a device. And I know there was somebody that claimed she could do this with her team and she swindled like a ton of people, but I actually have been shown that that technology will exist where you just put that drop of blood and it'll diagnose you. So much so with the advancement that we'll be able to do it at home. And they keep showing me that most of what we'll be able to do to diagnose and cure, heal our bodies will be done at home, like our own, like kind of personal devices. So it doesn't feel like we go to hospitals as much or like quick
Mhm.
cares or anything like that. And that there will be devices that we will use. Similar to kind of a red light therapy, but they showed it to me in different lights where there will be specific lights and sound frequencies that will heal the body. So it'll become, it feels like even more holistic than what we already have right now. Again, at home or opening a business where you can go step into whatever this like device is and it will help basically realign your frequency so that the body doesn't hold on to the ailment anymore. But something they said to me that I thought was really fascinating. They said, "Oh yeah, you'll be able to heal your bodies and you'll be able to basically like turn back time." I'm hearing that song "Turn Back Time" in my ear. Was that Cher right now? You'll be able to
Yes.
turn back time, but you will not be able to step over and ignore emotional healing that you haven't done
Mm.
yet.
Yeah,
Like
that's
there's
good.
no shortcut to that one. So you still have to do the inner work, but your body will be healthier, which may make people feel like, well, I don't need to do that inner work anymore. Like I'm feeling great.
Right.
But they have made it known like you won't be able to skip that part.
Huh, interesting. You were saying in another thing I was listening to about commercial real estate malls, because Richard's in commercial real estate. So of course
Ah,
that alerts me. But explain how you explained how like you see mall, like I'm surprised the mall down by us is expanding. And I'm like, I wonder, it's so weird to think that they think, I just don't see that becoming, like malls expanding. But
no. I haven't seen any mall expansion, so that's interesting. I wonder if they needed to do something with a pot of money they had and they were like, "Oh, let's just expand to the mall." Um, but yeah, I've actually seen more and more people living in malls. And I know that there are some places in the world where they have what is that transition like mall stores and they create apartments out of it. So Spirit was like, this is going to be
huh.
more of what they're going to do with these buildings that aren't going to be used anymore. So instead of like demolishing them, they're going to turn them into housing. And then they were showing me like inside of major cities where they had all these big buildings with commercial real estate and that there was going to be this pivot where it wasn't going to be as much business real estate, but they were actually going to turn like office suites into apartments and housing. I'm like, okay. So it feels like what we once knew as malls and office suites actually feels more like there's going to be where people are going to live. And so I think they're going to get really, really creative with how we live, like where we live. There's going to also be a lot more families, multi generational living together. So home builders, I think, will be looking at building different configurations for homes that aren't as widely available today. That will be more for multi generational and adult friends will live together more than they ever have
Huh.
before. And that actually, those don't feel bad. They just feel a
Yeah.
little bit different than what we have right now. And this is coming in too, as I'm saying this, that there could also be, it could become harder to own a house. And I know that that's all over the news around younger generations and not being able to buy a home. But I mean it from a different perspective. It feels like there's something in the energy around who will be able to even ask for a loan and get a loan. So it feels like there's a tightening around who's able to even buy one. Not it's almost like they say, oh, this person and this person can, the rest of you, sorry, we don't have any loans available. Like there's something
Hmm.
weird about the availability of like a standard mortgage. So we may see a lot of changes around that as well.
Huh. I heard you also speaking about like social media, Instagram, Facebook, that kind of disintegrating and going, you're thinking YouTube was more of the mainstream where it's going. Can you explain what that is? Because I feel like I know that, it's been what, my daughter's 19. I didn't know that's probably been what, that long that it started. It's been 20 years of Facebook and then Instagram and all that, and then TikTok and whatever. But what do you see the decline? You see the people not being interested in that and going to something not that.
Yeah, because I think with our rise in frequency and our blinders coming off,
Mm,
we're just going to see people differently. Like
right.
we're going to know when someone's like blowing smoke, or where you're going to hear them say something and know intuitively like they don't even have their own life together and they're sitting here trying to preach to me about something. So I think we're just going to almost like lose interest in hearing what a lot of people have to say, just because it doesn't align anymore, or it's fictitious, or it's for clicks.
Right.
So I think the heart centered content will actually become of more interest to more people. Right now, it's not as much, it's still the clickbait era, I think. But I've had conversations with a few people lately in the last couple of months that have had very similar revelations about how they feel like the clickbait and the Armageddon headlines, they don't even feel aligned with it anymore. And these are people that have massive followings that are like, I don't know
Huh.
what's happening, but it just doesn't feel right anymore. So I think that we're going to see a shift away from that. But the algorithm, I think, still favors a lot of it. So it'll be interesting to see how the different platforms are going to promote different content and see what people are aligning with, because I think the movement collectively will be more towards content that you actually feel good watching.
Hmm.
But that's going to take, I think, a bit of time because people are still in a lot of fear, and they are seeking out that dopamine hit that they get from the fear-based
Right.
content. But yeah, when I've tuned into it, it felt more like the longer formed YouTube content or podcasts that are longer form that really help people learn something about
Mm,
themselves or help uplift them, those will do better. And the other platforms that are just kind of quick hits for the clicks, those feel almost like people are grossed out. So I think the platforms will each have to decide, how are we going to manage this moving forward when people really have, what they're interested in change. And maybe they're already seeing it on the back end. I hope that they're seeing it in the data already, that interests are starting to shift towards the lighter, happier content. But we'll see. I think it's going to be a work in progress. But I've seen energetically more of the electric energy around it has been on YouTube.
mm,
And the other ones feel like they've got some major shifting they're going to have to do if they're going to be current as, the next few years unfold here. So,
right.
yeah.
Well, the girls will always say to me, Mom, there's an all big lie. And it's AI. Like, you really believe that? Or, or things like that. Like, no, but and I just thinking that the more we progress on this evolutionary journey that we're on, in our soul, we see the truth. And it can't be, we can't not see it, right? So I can see it, just the ones that aren't the truth are the ones that, are AI driven, or, you know, that we get to see, that we know, that once we know, basically.
Yeah. And goes back to From the Blue Chair. with the letters. I think
Yes.
part of that nudge from spirit is there's going to be so much AI and technology and fake content or people putting a script into
Yes.
a chat GPT and creating a video out of it that doesn't even have their voice, doesn't have their words, doesn't have anything. And I think people may feel really lonely or they might feel isolated, maybe more so than they ever have before because everything's changing so much. And so I think there's going to be a real appetite for people to hold something tangible or go in person to a class,
Hmm.
go and sit with their friend at a coffee shop because we're not going to have a whole lot of that in our day to day as the years unfold because there's going to be so much technology. There'll be a robot doing your dishes and your clothes and making your bed. And like, what are we going to do with our spare time? So that's why when I said earlier about the identity crisis, like, I really feel like there's going to be people
Hmm.
really having to sort through, like, who am I and what's important to me?
Yeah, for sure. We're at the end. Do you want to channel anything, a little message before we end?
They just said pull a card. Okay.
Okay.
So I
Oh,
have
good.
my tarot cards here. I was, um, I was pulling cards before we jumped on. So I'm going to ask Spirit, whew, so what do we need to know? We are here in 2026. I'm going to pull three cards. They're saying, okay, three cards. Give us an idea of what the energy is that is unfolding. Anything that we need to reiterate or that we haven't mentioned? I don't think any of these cards will come as a surprise to anyone.
I
We
love
have
it.
the Five of Swords, which is these these people on this card are fighting. And the main person on the card, he's got like a smirk on his face. And this is the card of like, are you trying to win at all costs? Like, who are you hurting and harming along the way?
Hmm.
Um, where are you being manipulating or where are you manipulating someone else? So, this I feel is a lot of what is being seen now that we've had our eyes closed for some time too. So, I'm not surprised by that. The next card is the Six of Swords. I like this card as our in between card of the three because on this card, you have somebody standing on the back of the boat. You have a mother figure and a child sitting in front of
Hmm.
them. But you'll notice in the water, they're actually, they were in more of a bumpier, ocean or tide or waves. And where they are like rowing to or paddling to is calm, still water.
Ah,
So it reminds me of how, it will be chaotic out there, but us as individuals will have so many more opportunities and open doors, and we'll be able to do so many incredible things in our own life and not to get caught up in the fear of what you are seeing in the headlines.
yeah, I
Okay.
love that. Great.
And then for our last card, which is perfect, it's actually the very first card of all 78 tarot cards. And it's the zero. It's called the
Huh.
Fool. And the Fool is like the new beginnings of all beginnings. Remember, we talked about Saturn and Neptune, 0 degrees of Aries, like it being the birth of all births of brand new. So this is that same energy. It's saying to us that we are in a new era and we aren't going back. And to keep your head held high, to know that you are on a journey, a path that the universe has divinely blessed, and you have as many opportunities in front of you that you want to have. So you get to be the captain of your own ship, and whatever you think you can do, you can. And anything you think you can't do, you're right.
Yep.
So choose the right thoughts. But I love those cards.
I
So I'm
do
glad they
too.
suggested that we
Me
pull a
too. I
few.
love it. Yay. Thank you. That was so fun. And I always say to the girls too, like, you can do anything. And if you think you can't, then you can't. Like it's pretty simple.
Definitely.
Okay, let's share where we can find you, what all the new blue chair, all the new things, just on your website.
Everything's over on my website. I make it as easy as possible. My socials are on there from the blue chair, the gathering room, everything is there. And it's at spiritandspark.com, all spelled out. So come connect with me over there. And I do have a free gift I actually just updated. It's a free 10-minute audio download. It's a reset so you can go within and clear your energy. And there's a worksheet that goes along with it. So that's on the website
Oh,
now.
fun. Oh, fun. It's a like a meditation?
Yep, a 10-minute audio, and you can actually download it to your own device if you want to. So you can listen to it whenever you want.
Oh, fun. Yay. Thank you. I loved
Yeah,
it.
thanks, Ashley.
Thank you so much.